Hello everyone, I am Rina Nakanishi and I'm here today with a sister and I will be hearing about her vocation and her life as a sister. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, Dana. Thank you for talking with me.
Could you first introduce yourself, your name and name of your religious order?
Okay, my name is Sister Hannah, and the congregation is the Sisters of St. Francis of the Martyr-St.George. It's a long name.
It's a long name, yes. Where are you from?
And okay, I'm an American, and I'm from Connecticut, and I entered our congregation. Our congregation is the mother house is in Illinois, and so Alton, Illinois. It's fairly close to the Missouri border, not far from St. Louis. So we're at the other end. Chicago's up north, and we're down south. And so I once I entered the convent, and I lived mostly in the Midwest, and then I came over to Japan in about 20 years ago. And so it's the same congregation, and so the Japanese sisters asked if it would be possible if some American sisters could come and help teach English. And so another sister and myself came to Japan. So that's why I'm here in Japan, in Sapporo, with the sisters here, but originally from America.
Were you baptized as a baby?
Yes, my family's Catholic.
Oh, okay. Then do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother and a younger brother, and they're both married.
Oh, so you're the only one who became. Oh.
Yeah. I'm the only one in the family in living history who's entered the convent. So yeah, they were all really surprised.
Did you went to like Catholic school, like in kindergarten, elementary school?
I went to Catholic school in junior high. I'm from a small town in Connecticut, and the school system's really good. My parents thought a lot about it and decided that junior high was probably the time where my brother and I would need a Catholic education the most, because that's often a really challenging time. And so they we went to public school except for 3 years, 5th grade through 8th grade, which in Japan is end of elementary school, junior high, middle junior high, and then 4 years of high school in the public school.
How long have you been since you became a sister?
Oh wow, okay. Let's see, it's 30 years this year.
Congratulations. I'll get into the main question. Why did you decide to become a nun?
Okay, well, when I was in high school, my mom was the youth minister of our church, and I wasn't really invested in my religion. You know, we went to Sundays, we went to Mass together as a family, and we'd done CCD, but once I was confirmed as 8th grade, I kind of wasn't really something I did by myself, you know. It was something we did as a family. And so, but it wasn't something that was really important to me. But when my mom was youth minister, she would often ask me to come along with her so that she would have at least one teenager. And our parish also was really involved in something called Emmaus. And Emmaus was a youth retreat program. It was part of the diocese, actually. And it's kind of based on the Cursillo movement in some ways. I think that's where the roots came from. And it was a weekend retreat for high school students, and it was put on by adults from the parish and then also other high school students who've gone through the retreat, and they would come back and help out. And so I got involved in that, and by being dragged by my mom to all the youth activities, my faith started becoming more important. And I was in high school deciding what college to go to. It's kind of a crossroads for me. I thought, well, if I went to the public school, University of Connecticut, was a very good school, or if I went to a Catholic school, it was kind of like one way I would be holding on to my faith, and the other way I probably wouldn't keep it, because it wasn't very strong, and I knew that. So I thought, okay, I'd like to have my faith as well as an education. So I asked if I could go to university, and I had some friends from the parish who were attending Franciscan University in Steubenville, and they suggested that one. It was a bit far and a little more expensive than what my parents were planning for. But my said yes, I could go if I got scholarships and a little help, which I did. And so I ended up in Steubenville, and there in Franciscan University, and that place is very, very strong in the Catholic faith, and it was a real blessing to go there. And
what major did you study?
well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, so I studied English because I loved English, and I thought, well, maybe I could do something publishing or something with books. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went and there and at the university, after some foot dragging, I realized I did have a vocation, and there were sisters there on campus that I got to know. And so from there, that's how I decided to enter the convent.
Okay. How did you discern your vocation?
Well, my freshman year of school, one of my new friends, she wanted very much to be a sister, and so she didn't want to go by herself to go and pray with the sisters and eat with the sisters and do different things with them. So she dragged me along with her. And that's kind of funny. Often that's how the Lord works. I'm not willing to do it, so He has somebody in my circle, and then we go together. And she didn't enter the convent. And I did. And so she's the one that we would go to different activities together. And the thought occurred to me, and I said no. I didn't want to become a sister. And then my sophomore year, my junior year, I got more involved with the people who I became really good friends with. They also were all thinking about becoming sisters. Like, it just happened to work out that way. And we spent more time with the sisters, and the thought became stronger, and I kind of argued with it a bit, but I just became really peaceful at the idea. And I decided, yes, okay, when I was a junior, that I would enter. But the discernment was a long process, and it was this was the decision that gave me more peace. And I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do outside. Like, I couldn't picture where I would go if I didn't enter the convent. So it was kind of like the other ways, the doors were more tightly closed, and this one was more open. And this is where I became more peaceful. So
after you graduated, you went
I
straight.
did graduate.
Oh, so
That was the other thing too. Yeah, my junior year, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go. And then for my senior year, the money became an issue with the university, and so I would have to either take out loans or stop. And I was an English literature major, which means that I couldn't have gotten a job with just that degree in the convent. I would have to go back and get something else, for example, teaching. And so I was talked to the provincial in America, and I said, you know what, if I finished, I'll have to get loans, and then I'd have to pay them off before I could enter. And so I was worried that if I did all of that, then maybe I wouldn't enter. And so, after we talked about it a lot and discerned I would have to go back to university anyways. So she was fine with me stopping. My family was not happy about that. And they were all like, but then if you leave, what are you going to do? You don't have anything to fall back on. And so there was a lot of people that were very surprised at that. But I thought, well, you know what, if it doesn't work, I just go back to university and finish there, and maybe I'd have a better idea. And so I wasn't sure that I would last in the convent, but I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and trust that this is what will be all right. And so I dropped out of university. Entered.
So how old were you?
I was 21.
Oh, same age still. Have you ever thought about entering other religious orders, other Franciscan, like other?
Not so much. Like there were other communities around the university. I happened to be in the same dormitory. At the time when I went, our sisters lived in the dormitory with the students. They had a separate wing, and there was 3 or 4 sisters, and one was a teacher. And so the university was really good. They gave them several rooms, including one room that could be like their chapel. They didn't have the Blessed Sacrament there, but the Blessed Sacrament was in the chapel in another part of the dormitory. Every dorm had its own chapel. And so I got to know those sisters because we lived on the same floor, you know, it was just a hallway away, and they were very welcoming. We could eat with them, and then we could pray with them, and that was really important. And then there were other sisters, there was a lot of other sisters around, but these were the ones that I felt the connection to. And then I was able to go and visit the convent on a retreat a couple times actually. I had a big van, and all of us that wanted to go loaded up over the spring break and different times. So we went and drove to Illinois, and we could spend a couple days with them. And it just really felt like this was where I was most peaceful. And I found in my prayer life that God doesn't give me a lot of options because I just tend to stall. So I felt like, okay, all the doors opened in this direction, so this is where I should go.
What is the spirituality of your religious order?
We have two phrases that are the most important, and one is looking on Him whom they have pierced, and making Christ's merciful love visible. And so we're Franciscan, and the base of our foundation is the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And so as lived out as St. Francis, he didn't call it the devotion to the Sacred Heart, but how he saw Jesus on the cross, and his love of the crucified one. And as a part of that, we use the phrase a lot: the crib, the cross, and the Holy Eucharist. And so Jesus, from the incarnation to the crucifixion to his true presence, all of that we see through the Franciscan lens, focusing in on Jesus' Sacred Heart. And so the cross is really important to us. We look on Him whom we have pierced, and then from that we get our strength. And then the way we live out our life is to make His merciful love visible in our apostolate. And so it's really a very open apostolate, so we do a lot of different types of work.
Where was the religious order founded?
In Germany. And so it was founded in the late 1800s. And the sister who founded it, Mother Anselma, and the other sisters who helped us, two sisters in particular, she and another sister, they were originally Sacred Heart sisters. And the bishop called them, or priest called them, to go and work in northern Germany. They were centered in the part of Germany that lies right on with the border with France. And because of different wars going on at that time in the late 1800s, sometimes it was France and sometimes it was Germany. And so the two sisters went up to northern Germany, and they started a convent there. And while they started to grow, contact with the mother house became really difficult, and so eventually they just decided to break off and form their own congregation. And so that's how we started. And the parish church in this small little German town is called the St.George.
Oh, that's where the
name comes from. They originally wanted to be the Franciscan Sisters of the Sacred Heart, but there already was a new order with the same name. So the response back from Rome was, pick another name, how about the local church? So we became the Franciscan Sisters of the St.George. And so, because of the church. So it's
I was wondering why.
We don't really have a huge devotion to St. George. He's a wonderful saint. I mean, we like him, but he's not the reason why we founded the congregation. So, there's just a lot of Franciscan orders with a devotion to the Sacred Heart. They're really the same. It's looking at the Sacred Heart through the Franciscan eyes, and there's quite a few of us. And so to distinguish the different groups, they went with the parish church.
I noticed that there is adoration in this convent. Is that part of the spirituality?
Yes, our sisters have starting in the Mother House, we have a adoration chapel, and there they have 24-hour adoration, perpetual adoration, and then in each of the Mother Houses they have adoration as well. And in the daughter houses it's not always possible. In the smaller convents there's always a chapel, but we can't always have the the same type of adoration. That also depends a lot on the parishes too. And so if there is a parish that has perpetual adoration, then the sisters are trying to be involved as much as possible. So adoration has always been important. And in recent years, in Japan, it's become more important. We've sort of changed a little bit with how it's done and try to make it more accessible to everyone. And as the sisters age, they're not able to be so active in the apostolate, so that we have more opportunity for sisters to pray. And so we've been able to adjust it a bit because the sisters are able to be here more often.
Why do you love being a sister?
Wow, that's a really hard question. That's a really good question. It's really hard to answer simply. I'm not very good at synthesizing or summary. Well, I love God, and my as a high school student, as a university student, and then when I was discerning my vocation, really what became the most important part was, okay, I truly believe in God, and I love Him, and I believe that He loves me. So where do I go from here? And then He said, well, come follow me. And so I did, and in my religious life, that's where I find Him. And I have a lot of struggles and a lot of difficulties, and I'm a pretty broken person. And so I've struggled a lot with different things throughout my whole life, but God's always been there. And with each struggle, each time I fail, each time I get up, each time I'm closer to Him, and that's the source of my happiness. And so because He's here in my religious life, that's why I'm happy as a sister.
So at the age of 21, you entered the convent, and after you became a sister, did you work in the U.S. and then came to Japan?
Yes,
after a few years.
I was a sister in the United States for 10 years.
Oh.
And so I, finished the novitiate, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the provincial said, how about becoming a teacher? And I said, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't think I'm very good at it. School was hard for me. And so I spent a year working in the convent, and then she said, okay, how about you go to school? So I went to school, and much to my surprise, found that I loved it. And so I taught for 4 years in an elementary school in Illinois, in Champaign, Illinois. It always makes people smile, but there was no actual champagne involved. It was named after someone whose last name was Champagne, French general, actually. It was named after a Frenchman whose last name was Champagne. So then after that, we got the request to send some sisters, and it's funny, the provincial first called my convent because there was a sister there who had done a study program in Japan before entering the convent, and she thought the sister would be interested in going, and the sister wasn't. But as soon as I heard, kind of something in me clicked, and I thought, okay, I could do that.
Have you ever been to Japan before?
No. And I originally it was just for 1 year or 2 years, and then we would go back, and then 2 other sisters would take our place. That was the plan. It was kind of more like a library book than an actual transfer. We would go, and then someone else would come, and we would go. So it was kind of supposed to be that way.
Teach English in Japan?
Yes, so I come here, live here with the sisters, and work in the high school, and the other sister worked in the university, and then it was going to be 2 years, and then go back, and then 2 other sisters would take our place. But in that time, it ended up being where no one else volunteered, and we really enjoyed it, so we stayed. It seemed to be a good fit, so the 2 of us stayed. And then unfortunately the other sister had some health issues after about 4 or 5 years, so she ended up going back. And so 5 years. She went back, and so maybe 6 years. So anyway, sorry. So she had to go back because of health problems, and I stayed. And there's been a few sisters that say, well, maybe they would be interested in America, but that none of that has come to fruition. So there hasn't been anyone to take my place. So I'm here, and for a long time, every year, it was like, well, will you stay another year? And I discerned it and said, yes, okay. And then after about 9 years, it was like, okay, I'll just stay. And so.
Okay. So when you came to Japan, did you went to like a Japanese language school or something like that?
See, we were only going to be here for 2 years.
Oh, right.
So there wasn't any point, you know? So we had classes on Saturday where we did a lot of culture and then so we could carry on a simple conversation in case we got lost somewhere. And there was a fair number of English speakers, sisters who could speak English really well. And so, you know, it wasn't a problem. And then after about 9 years, it was a problem. And so, but I've been working full time at the school, and you know, I'm with the other foreign teachers, and so we didn't have to speak Japanese.
Right. Yeah. English is enough.
So after a while, it's gotten to be kind of challenging, and I've gotten older, and learning the language is harder.
Right.
So I'm, you know, struggling now. It's always a bit embarrassing when I tell anybody how long I've been here. And then I say what level of Japanese I have, and those two don't match.
Do you now go to the school?
Now I do.
Okay,
So my job has changed actually. Now I'm the novice miss or the novice directress for the Japanese province.
Oh.
And so I've just started.
Oh,
So
what do you do like?
Well, right now it's sort of in limbo. We have some candidates who are interested, but they haven't been able to enter yet. And so another sister and I are now in charge of their formation. But while we're waiting for everything to happen, we do other things instead. So I still teach at the high school. I teach part-time in the mornings, and then in the afternoon I go to language school. So I've been doing a crash course on Japanese.
Is it hard?
Yes.
Kanji and everything.
Yes,
right?
yes. And so it's really challenging. And unfortunately, over the years, I've learned to communicate, but with a lot of grammatical mistakes, you know, and everyone around me is just, that Sister Hannah talks, and so it's okay. And, you know, we can communicate, but I can't speak a nice, clear, accurate sentence very easily, and so I have to get rid of my bad habits and learn how to use correct grammar. It's very challenging.
Yeah, it's hard, I guess. So in high school, do you like teach like English grammar?
I teach, well, it's English conversation. And so as part of that, it is also grammar and parts of the language, but it's from an English perspective. So they have class taught by a Japanese teacher. They have that almost every day. And that's where they get into the real intensive grammar study, and they learn it in both English and Japanese. And then the foreign teachers, we teach a separate class, and we teach it as if we were teaching in the States or in our own country with that style. And we teach how to use the language, and they have to do speeches and written tests and everything. And so it's just a different perspective.
Then do you mostly use English in that class?
Yes, we try to use only English, but that's not always possible. So I use my little bit of broken Japanese and English.
Do you enjoy teaching?
I do. I was surprised. I didn't enjoy being a student when I was younger, but I really enjoy teaching, and I really enjoy being with the students.
Since you came to Japan, the most thing you do is teaching and going to the language school.
Mostly it was teaching. This is a new thing this past year. Going to English school, or going to Japanese school. Otherwise, it was all teaching. And at the high school here, that our sisters, it's a junior high school combined school, so it's 6 years. And so I've taught there. That has been my experience here in Japan. It's working at that school, and I love it. It's a great school, and so I'm really happy to be there. And so this has been a year of transition as I learn a new type of work. So.
How does your daily schedule look like? What time do you wake up and?
Well, we have prayers and a regular day we have prayers at 6 o'clock. But we also, before that, we also have our private prayers. So usually I get up around 4:30, and then private prayer, and then we have prayer together, the Divine Office, and then we have Mass, and so then we have breakfast, and that's about 7 o'clock, and then we have breakfast in silence since it tends to be a little bit quicker. And then after that, I go to work, and I try to be, usually at school by 8 o'clock. And then before, when I was working full-time at school, I was at the high school, junior high. I was at the high school until about 5 o'clock, 5:30, depending on what was going on. And then come back for evening prayer at 5:45. And then after evening prayer, we would have supper. And then depending on the day of the week, there'd be different things. And now with my new schedule, I finish school by midday, and I'm able to pray midday with the sisters, which is great. And I have lunch together with the sisters. I taught at school, lunchtime was really busy, so I had to eat early, and then I was always at school then. So I'm happy now that both are filled with graces, but it's nice now to be able to pray that with the sisters. And so I pray midday at 11:40, and then we have lunch, and then after that I go to my Japanese school and come back about 4, have a cup of coffee, and then I study for a bit. And then now, at this time, we pray at 5:30 every day, because we pray a decade of the Rosary for peace in Ukraine. And then regular office starts at 5:45.
Do you have any great memories that you remember since you became a sister in US or Japan?
Oh, I have many. We have there's a lot of challenges, of course, to our life, but there's also a lot of joy. And I'm really grateful for community life. Again, it's one of those things where there's a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of graces too. And it's kind of hard to narrow that down. There's a lot with our life together, our life in prayer. Yeah, that's really hard.
So in Japan, there's about in here, there's about 50 sisters in here, right?
Right.
How many sisters was in US?
Well, in the United States, in the mother house, there's also about 50 sisters, and then the small daughter houses. Here in Japan, they've had to consolidate because the sisters are getting older, and so now we have just the 3 houses. But there's a lot of sisters in each of the 3 houses. And in the States, they still have a lot more younger sisters, and so there's more sisters active in the apostolate, and so they have a big mother house. And in the States, it's connected to a hospital. In America, our sisters started out first in healthcare, and then mostly did that for years. We had a big hospital and a nursing home, and then it wasn't until the 1970s that they started getting into teaching. And so now it's pretty well. I think there's a few more. I'm not really sure, to be honest, with the numbers, but it's pretty equal with maybe a few more sisters teaching. And so, because our apostolate is to make Christ's merciful love visible, so you can do that in everything. It's really helpful. So here, that's been traditionally teaching. And then there's now they have a nursing home and a little more healthcare. So it's kind of the opposite. And so in Alton, there's about 50 sisters, and there's the nursing home. The hospital, and then they have many other smaller houses, kind of different parts of the United States, where they have sisters. And the smaller houses are about 3 to 4 sisters, depending on the apostolate.
What about in Germany? Do they also teach?
Yes, in Germany, it's both hospitals and schools.
So the main work is teaching and hospital, I guess.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Depending on
in Germany, they also do a lot with more of a focus on boarding houses. They have a dormitory, and they have it reflects their school and their education system. But they also have other types of retreat houses and different things. It's not quite the same, but yes, basically we started out with healthcare and education.
What in particular drew you closest to God while in convent?
Ironically, it's my own faults and failures, I think. I've always really struggled with my self-esteem, I guess, for lack of that away and just trying to understand God's love for me and how that's lived out in my daily life. That's kind of how He's sort of pulled me along as I've struggled and failed with understanding how He loves me and how to live out my trust in His plan. That's kind of how He's always led me along, and then through that's been through the Mass and through the Rosary and through devotion to the cross. There's been a lot of different things. So I would say probably the Sacred Heart devotion has been the most important. It's just kind of come and gone a different way, come and gone. It's changed and evolved over time.
What does the devotion to the Sacred Heart mean to you?
That's, for me, the clearest, most concrete way to see God's love for each and every one of us is that it's not just that He became man, it's that He became man and then He gave us His heart on the cross, and so like His love is so strong that it's visibly represented by the heart that He holds in His hand. And so and then for me that's very much intertwined with the Divine Mercy devotion, and that's very important to me, and that idea that His love is something that spills out, and that it's always there for us whether we see it or not, and the more that we open up to that love, the more that He can draw us into His life. And so then the more we understand that changes how we see each person and how we see every event of our life, and how we see just our world and everything around us. And so as I come to have a better understanding of God's merciful love, then it affects how I am at school, how I teach, how I grade, how I even teaching grammar, like it's not just me teaching the be verb to these first year students. It's me giving myself over to God so He can use me as a source of grace for these people, even though we're just talking about grammar. You know what I mean? So like it's not me holding the chalk, it's Jesus in me working together to bring out grace, and the chalk is just a reason for me to be in the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very beautiful. So lastly, could you give advice to everyone about discerning the vocation?
Wow, I think a lot of it is where do you feel the most peaceful? Like it's something that you think a lot about in your head and you try to understand and you look, but then where does your heart feel most at rest? And that seems to be the biggest sign. I wish that there was a text from God saying go here, and I have to pray really hard, come on Jesus, just a little bit more loud, a little bit louder, but there isn't. So it's just more of where is there a quietness and a peacefulness, and you walk in and you think, okay, yes, I can do this. It took me 3 years, so it's not a quick process.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. This was really interesting, and so I hope that was helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
では皆さん、私のためにお祈りください。私も皆さんのためにお祈りいたします。Please pray for me. I'll be praying for you. Bye. God bless you. Bye.